Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Hope you are enjoying the dog days of summer.
Oh, how's the weather out that way? It's not really pertinent. We're pre-recording this, so Drew, when you watch this or listen to this, it's gonna be 5 days into the future anyway. It's a nice day, 75, sunny, little clouds, little breeze.
Nice
Day for a walk, some outdoor tacos. At a taco, the taco guy, he was like, "You like these tacos? The ones I always order." He's like, "I got another thing guy invented. It's not on the menu." Like, oh, I'm going off the menu at my taco joint.
Whoa,
so kind of a big day for me.
That's huge. Well, you're on vacation eve, so you're having a nice time. But we're gonna get into the NFC least today, and we're gonna start at the bottom with the New York Giants, and the tale of the Giants in modern time was a team that steadfastly stuck by its terrible GMs and coaches much longer than they had to. And then they finally jettison Gettleman. They bring in Joe and Brian to take over things. They look at the roster and collectively pre-2022 say, the cupboard is bare, guys. We gonna stink. And then they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game against your Vikings. Gave Daniel Jones a bunch of money. Yeah. And then they stunk.
Boy, and I feel like we nailed that play. Like when we talked about that playoff game, in that moment, we said both of these teams are bad. Like both of these teams shouldn't be in the playoffs because everyone is really, really harsh on the Vikings correctly. Like that wasn't some really good team that was like going to make a playoff run. We basically said like both of these teams are not playoff caliber teams. One of them's going to win, so there's going to be a not playoff caliber team in the second round that is going to get their asses thrashed. And I believe, was it Eagles? Did they play the Eagles next round?
They did. They were 8-point dogs, and it wasn't
30-8 or something silly like that. Just got whacked. Such as like, but both of those teams ended up in kind of weird spots. And, obviously Minnesota in a different spot because of the quarterback thing too, but you got to get lucky on draft picks. You got to end up in the right spot with quarterback. And I don't think we've done a lot of that in New York. And the turnover in GM seemed like a positive at the time, but it just doesn't feel like we're getting anything new. It just feels like more of the same. We're turning it over and we're having a roster that's bereft of things that can help a middling quarterback. And then we're suddenly finding out that it might not even be a middling quarterback at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big question really for what to expect from them this year. If you get 20th to 25th performance out of Daniel Jones, this isn't the worst team in the NFL. If you get 31st, 32nd performance out of Daniel Jones, it is. I look at sort of the arc here of the Giants under the new regime, and I think, another franchise that is a little bit more, just quicker on the trigger with moving on from GMs and coaches. Like these guys would be in trouble this year. They set expectations too high in year one when they really did have some pretty clear talent deficiencies. They went 9-7-1 to get to the playoffs. The NFC was wildly like low at that time. Like there was just nothing good going on across the conference. And they got lucky to get their 9 wins. They won a lot of close games, and they got lucky to win their playoff game because it was matchup dependent. But there were some nice things that Brian Daboll was doing. He brought in coordinator Mike Kafka, who was, kind of integral to the development and success of Mahomes. And, you saw enough what like that Brian Daboll did with the Giants. He won coach of the year. He saw enough to believe that maybe it was the right thing to sign this guy for a long term. Like ultimately, like you want to stick with him, fine. They gave him like a lot of money and they put themselves into a situation where this year the entire story kind of comes down, or really like the main focus is like how many games does Jones start? Because the longer he plays, even if it's good, the more likely it is they're on the hook for a big old number next year, and the actual rebuild is delayed even further into the future. And so that's kind of the nature of handicapping the Giants this year, which is like, are they trying to win, or do they want to pick their quarterback in the future in the top of the next draft? Because I honestly couldn't see this go either way. Maybe they think, well, we'll just decide depending on how Jones plays, because Jones is off of a non-trivial injury, and he's never shown us that he can really be any better than an average league average quarterback.
I'm not completely caught up on the Hard Knocks stuff, watching it completely, but if you follow Twitter, just like, do anything with football Twitter, you're going to get caught up just by, all the aggregator accounts putting out the big stories from that episode. And I mean, the biggest one was they kind of floated around moving up for Daniels. They floated around moving up for another quarterback in this draft.
I thought it was Drake May, right? They wanted to get up to third.
Was it May?
Yeah. It was for May.
I don't think.
From what I
think
saw, it looked like they really were into May. I don't know that they were into Daniels, but who the hell?
Maybe I misread that, but yeah, they were looking at moving up and taking a quarterback rather than the wide receiver they ended up with, which probably was the right move if they could have pulled it off. It would have just cost so much, like you said. Daniel Jones is not cuttable this year based on what he would cost. I think it's a big chunk. It would be like 70 in dead money or something terrible like that. But next year you could, and like you said, if you keep playing them, that number doesn't increase for next year. But what's the other option, especially for a coach who, I don't know where he stands, I guess, with the front office, but between him and Wink fighting last year and him and Kafka kind of having their differences, and I mean, Kafka interviewed for other jobs. I mean, what does that say? Like, he didn't interview. He was going to move laterally. He was willing to go be like an OC somewhere else. I don't think that's.
Well, I think he ultimately lost play calling duties, right? Did you say that?
It's back and forth, and that's still kind of up in the air. From what I mean, some people have stronger opinions that that's a done deal, but
yeah,
I think it's still up in the air on, Dable might call plays. I don't know if that matters one way or the other with the talent you have, but yeah, the coaching staff's in a weird spot where they can't be like, yeah, let's just punt on this season, because punting on this season means updating your resume. Like Dable can't weather that storm, and it might not matter either way. I bet if you go look at first coach fired stuff, he's probably near the top because it's projected to be one of the worst teams in the league, and you're not going to get good play. You don't have the benefit of saying, it's a rookie quarterback. We, give him a couple more years. He doesn't have any of those safety nets. He already essentially he got rid of the DC. Can't do it again.
I don't know if he's that hot to see. I mean, because again, like the Giants and really the Maras in particular.
Well, what you pointed out, Drew,
they're
your point
super
of
loyal.
Well, they've been through so many.
They got themselves into this mess with Daniel Jones. I can't imagine that Dable was in there like, if we don't bring back Daniel Jones, then we got a problem, right? Like, I don't think that Shine was like really all that interested in it. It sounded like this was from the top. Mara was like, nope, we're keeping our guy. Like he took us to the playoffs, he won a game, he's getting rewarded.
They've been through so many coaches in the last 7-8 years. I think that probably helps them a little, where it's like, all right, you guys, we can't just fire a coach every 2 years now. We gotta stick with somebody and try to get this thing rebuilt. I still don't think he's completely safe because there's just been too much shithousery.
There has been. Okay. So last year heading into the regular season, the Giants weren't by any expectation, any metric, any number, any power number. Nobody was really expecting them to make another playoff run. Everybody was kind of expecting a step backwards before hopefully a step forward this year. And 6-11 certainly was a step backwards, but honestly, it felt way worse than 6-11. Their Pythag was lower than that, surely. Their schedule ended up being pretty easy. But they went into their home opener, hosting the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and they got a little bet, I want to say, from memory, to where they were, or maybe they didn't get bet, but it was.
Did they cover that
3.
one?
It was right around 3, and they could have scored 24 points and they wouldn't have covered it. They didn't score 24 points. They scored 0. They lost to the Cowboys on opening night 40-0. Cowboys themselves set a trend that kind of was consistent throughout the year of being just abject bullies. But the Giants set a trend in that game of forgetting entirely how to pass protect. It was crazy how lost the offensive line looked in pass protection. And I have no idea exactly why so many players took a huge step backwards, other than, they lost Andrew Thomas early, and he was kind of on the rise. And, he was obviously a pretty important player, but he's not the anchor to the tune of, he's not the anchor to the tune of, one guy down and now everybody forgets how to do their job entirely. Like the offensive line was like non-functional through all of Daniel Jones's starts, to the tune of him going 1-6 before he tore his ACL. And it was some injury, some just non-functional play. And boy, even the one win came against Arizona Cardinals and a backup quarterback. So they
were down 20-0 in that game. They let the opponents score the first.
True. That's
right. They let the opponents score the first 60 points of the season. They were down 20-0 at half, and then it's like, oh, hey, we're bad, but this is the Cardinals with nobody starting essentially at this point. We should beat this team. And it was a close game. I read this and I dug in a little bit, but I couldn't find a ton more outside of the one preview piece that had this talking about last year's offensive line coach. He wanted to do a lot of cross training. So during camp, OTAs, and into preseason, they moved a lot of guys around and had them starting and playing at other positions. And it seemed that was, and I copy and pasted this. I'm going to have to find who actually wrote this because I feel bad, but it says, at the expense of establishing timing and continuity, as what we saw, because it's nice to have guys who are flexible and versatile, but what we saw, that product, they weren't good already. And if you don't have any continuity, you don't have your flow, your timing, you get products that look like what we saw against a good pass rush, a good defensive coordinator. But it was rough. And like you said, it didn't get all that much better for Daniel Jones. You talk about the 6 wins. Yeah. But at the same time, it was just, I feel like the Eagles game at the end was against backups.
Yeah,
close the season, and then.
But even that though, the Eagles didn't have every reason to quit. They just kind of started stinking, and then they pulled everyone. Yeah, that's what I remember. Here's the wins.
You beat the Cardinals. You beat Washington twice. You beat the Patriots, which is bad. The only win that was impressive is
you beat the Patriots 10-7, by the way.
Yeah, that was a bad game.
You lost to the Jets. What was the deal with the Jets game? That was the worst game of all, right? 13, that was the shower fart game of the year. Is that right? That was the shower fart game of the year, right?
Yes.
That one was hilarious too, because they managed to find a way through punting to lose that game.
That was an overtime.
In overtime, they
at 10-10. Yeah. So Tyrod Taylor, 4 for 7 for 8 yards, was your passing leader for the Giants. Saquon ran the ball 36 times, and you lost to Zach Wilson in overtime. Your leading receiver, Darren Waller, retired.
Yes,
he only had 4 yards that day, but he was a leader.
The box score for that game is absolutely hilarious. But even more crazy was that the Giants had the ball on the Jets 17 with 28 seconds left and a 3-point lead, and they lost. How in the hell did this happen? They miss a chip shot field goal. Zach Wilson gets a deep pass to Garrett Wilson, a deep pass to Alan Lazard, and then they had a Greg Zuerlein field goal to make it go to OT. And then in OT, Tommy DeVito just could not get it done. And ultimately, Zach Wilson got a pass interference penalty for 30 yards, which was enough to get them the field goal to mercifully end that game. Boy, was that a shitty one.
That Giants drive. You had a 3-point lead.
Mm-hmm.
You had the ball.
Yeah.
that drive started at the Jets' 26, your opponent's 26-yard line, with a minute and 26 seconds with a 3-point lead, and you lost that game.
Yeah. Week 4, your loss to the Seahawks 24-3 was in prime time. Your offensive line was unplayable. Your quarterback was miserable. Week 6 against the Buffalo Bills, you lost 14-9 in prime time. And that one was referee assisted for the Buffalo Bills, as that gave them extra opportunities to score the game tying touchdown at the end, if I remember correctly, or didn't give the Bills extra opportunities, or didn't give the Giants extra opportunities. I can't remember how that one went, but the end of that was an absolute abortion. And then, congratulations. You beat the Commanders twice. And you know what? If you lose the Commanders in those 2 games, you're better off. Because then you're taking Drake May and they're figuring out how the hell would they trade in assets to get JJ McCarthy or whatever, or, whatever QB4 was.
Two of the 3 games, the 2 Commanders and the Patriots game. If you lose 2 of those, or the Packers game, that's no business competing with a team like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a stretch. And actually the stretch came to the benefit of Tommy DeVito. He was the only guy that got any glory out of the season for the Giants, as he was like a household name for winning hard-fought, tough, hard scrap games for the Giants in relief of Daniel Jones. But what a terrible, terrible season. And worst possible outcome was honestly to get to 6 wins. And they cost themselves sort of having any kind of plan for the future of the franchise with a rookie quarterback in doing so. And so it is the Daniel Jones question mark season this year, as we do not really know how effective he'll be coming off of ACL surgery, as one of his biggest advantages was his ability to be dynamic on the ground. And now like all of these incentives are so fucked here. Like, Daniel Jones is best served scrambling and getting hurt. The Giants are best served not playing their better quarterback. There's no way to really develop any of the young talent on this roster. And I don't really know what you do with some of the young players you've drafted. Like, there are huge question marks about your evaluation of Evan Neal and his ability to be a long-term contributor for you on your offensive line, with huge draft pedigree for a tackle. There's huge questions about Kayvon Thibodeau. In fact, you gave away draft capital to bring in Brian Burns rather than just continue to see what you have, figure out what you got with Kayvon Thibodeau. And so you're like, okay, well, yeah, now we got 2 edges, and an absolute, no doubt, bona fide All-Pro and Dexter Lawrence in the middle. And so it's like, cool, we can put.
That's how you start a rebuild. You gotta
we're gonna rush the passer, but like, to what end is that helping you? Because you can't cover, you don't have any secondary, and your offense is not going to be able to go score for score with anyone that is throwing the ball on you. So, it does feel like you have accumulated weird talent in weird spots, and it's all going to sort of dry on the vine as you just try to run out this joke of a situation with Daniel Jones. Am I being too harsh here?
No,
or is this really just sort of this is where things stand?
Once I looked at it, it's like, man, they put a lot of chips into pass rush without having like a secondary to tie in with that.
Yeah, why?
And the offense might probably, not more than might, a stronger version of might stink. So it's like I guess you're depending on a pass rush to keep you in games, and you hope the offense gets lucky. So I guess you're playing for turnovers. You're playing for strip sacks. That's the game plan. I guess you're playing for a draft pick is what you're doing. Like, it does feel like if there is any sort of behind the scenes blessing for Dable, telling him like, hey, we know this team isn't very good. Go do what you can. But if we end up with a top 5 draft pick, we're not going to be super mad at you.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too is if the first game under Dable, they win a coin flip against Tennessee by going for 2 at the end of the game. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then that really kind of changed the trajectory of year 1 for the Giants, to where they were really like trying to win.
Oh, this team's playing hard for him.
And that got them to the point where the draft the next year, they couldn't really get anybody good.
Yeah.
God, shut up.
What's that?
Holy crap. some sort of autoplay ad on our lads. My God, that's they have completely cannibalized it. The internet, by the way, is just broadly fucking broken right now. It is killing me. You cannot use the Chrome on your phone anymore on iPhone and like look at websites. It's absolutely crazy how everything is falling
I
apart.
just miss Tumblr.
Anyway, the ultimately like the trajectory of the draft of the 2022 Giants took them out of being able to make an informed, correct decision about the quarterback position, and now here they are having to live through 2 years of lessons about this. And I can't imagine that I can't imagine that there is really a mentality in the Meadowlands of we're comfortable just literally tanking this entire season. I think they're going to try, and they're probably going to win some games. They're probably going to win enough games where getting the clear, true next quarterback of the future is not an easy job for them. And I think the quality of the quarterback class coming out next year doesn't seem all that great. So like they may just be making a lateral move and have another project on their hands and just continuing to be a little bit of a blue franchise for the next several years, which is a bummer, because you know why it's a bummer? Not because I like the Giants. The Giants can go fuck themselves. It's because they put them on primetime all the time because it's a huge New York property, and this is like when the Knicks sucked over and over and over and over again. You're just like, please, just be decent. 1 year, please. And
the year that he won Coach of the Year,
for the Giants, for us, yeah.
The year he won Coach of the Year, Dable,
those games were unwatchable, man.
Was it the same year we got Tibbs as Coach of the Year as well?
It might have been.
God, fuck New York. Sorry, guys. I know a bunch of you probably live there. It's a big city. I would assume at least one or two listeners are from the greater New York area. Never been. Someday.
Anyway,
no desire.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot else to say. Like you said, they did too well 2 years ago. So you drafted like 22nd. You got a corner. Congrats. You needed a lot more than that. It was a lot cooler the year before when you had 2 top 10 picks. Off-season stuff.
Do you hold it against them that they ended up with Neal and Thibodeau out of that?
No, I'm saying last year where they got like
I'm saying they're 2 top 10s. Like, feels like the Jets did better. Feels like a lot of teams with like elite draft capital in that draft did better than you.
Yeah, that wasn't at the time. It's like, those were the needs. Those were the needs they had, and it seemed like, hey, I don't know, this Neal could be good. Thibodeau is probably pretty good, and we just haven't really seen it. Yeah, the Jets took Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson with their 2 top 10 picks that year.
Yeah.
One of those teams did better.
Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson.
The rest, so I mean, we just talked about Trayvon Walker, and he's been a little disappointing, but man, Hutchinson, Stingley, Drake London hasn't really gotten the run yet. Charles Cross, I don't know how I feel about him completely, but there's a bunch of guys that hit in that draft. Obviously, Jameson Williams has missed a bunch of time. Kyle Hamilton might be on a Hall of Fame trajectory at this point. Jesus, he got good in a hurry. Like, I know it's still early in the career, but there's a bunch of good draft picks early on, and the Giants, maybe some of it's development.
Yeah, and at that point, like, you definitely can point the lens at Dable and question what's going on for sure. Okay, their offseason was confusing. I agreed with them kicking the tires on quarterbacks. I don't love that they didn't get anything better than Drew Lock. And I think that like the move for Brian Burns confused me a bit. You're electing to go with a very, very green secondary was confusing to me, as opposed to trying to invest there. And prioritizing wide receiver in the draft felt like
they were in a weird spot. Like, I guess it was trade back and draft another offensive lineman. But do you give up on Neal that early? It's kind of a tough spot they were in where they were at in the draft. It's either move up, get your quarterback, move back, go defense. Man, they could have moved way back and got one of the best corners in the draft, apparently, as it turns out. As you mentioned, or as I mentioned, they weren't super keen on the offensive line coach. He got shit canned like the day of the season or whatever. So they brought in Carmen Brasillo, Josh McDaniels guy who's been getting the most out of. He's been getting the most out of offensive lines that don't have stars on it for a few years now with the Raiders, and he was with the Patriots as well. And he's gotten something out of something, the chicken salad out of chicken shit. But I mean, they brought in some pieces, and it's still like you got Andrew Thomas and a bunch of Jags. I don't mean the Jaguars, because Andrew Thomas, I wrote best player, only good player. Luminor, he came over. He kind of came with Brasillo. He is probably going to play left guard, but he can play all over. If Evan, I've read several people positing that if Evan Neal can't hang at right tackle, they might move him over there and find somebody else to fill in at guard, because they got Aaron Stinney from Tampa Bay as depth. The rookie center didn't have a good year, but he had bad guards as well. He had injuries. It's tough to say. Not a great rookie campaign for John Michael Schmitz. John Runyon, how old is he? Feels like he's up. I'm looking this up right now. John Runyon is 56 years old.
Is he actually? That was just
this is a different
blind guess.
So John Runyon was apparently a politician. John Runyon is 26. This is John Runyon Jr.
John Runyon Sr. is 50.
Yeah. Came over from Green Bay. That's probably a decent enough move as far as helping out. He's steady and capable, someone said. So he'll take over at right guard. Evan Neal needed off-season surgery for a fracture in his ankle. We'll see if he pans out. Like I said, Illuminor can take over that spot. They might be shuffling this after all. It's going to be a weakness again, even bringing in a couple guys to improve it and hoping some of these young guys that they've drafted over the past 3 years pan out besides Thomas. It's a lot of wish casting and a lot of, ifs and buts, candies and nuts. It's still probably a bottom 5 offensive line for the most part.
You think bottom 5?
It could be.
If Thomas is available.
Thomas playing. Thomas playing is the only thing that elevates it, because we've seen that work.
I think it's very likely bottom 10, but bottom 5 feels like that nothing improves.
That bottom 5 is like the worst case, where just the moves don't work.
Yeah.
You don't see any improvement. If you get the same level of play from the center, if you get the same level of play from Neal, and the moves are just ho-hum at guard, yeah, it's bottom 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this was a confusing offseason in that it feels like they pushed some chips in order to go from a 6-11 team to a 6-11 team that got lucky 6 wins, albeit unlucky, as we just covered. They pushed some chips in so they can be a 7-win team, and still not get the quarterback of the future. Like, that's kind of the vibe. That's bad. So I don't understand it, really. Like, it should attack full on youth movement, see what you can get for the players that aren't going to make, be single-handedly be able to save some of these positional groups, and really try to hit the reset button. Because instead of that, they're kind of sticking with it. I guess credit to them for not paying Saquon Barkley.
That was the right move. Like, he's still probably going to have some effective years. He was fine. He was good last year, He was actually a good running back. If he's healthy, he's good. But where you're at in your rebuild, paying a running back that's not the move. So Especially, it worked out probably well for them that Philadelphia was willing to pay what they were going to pay, because they weren't going to match that. So that was maybe my favorite part of their offseason. Just kind of looking at all the rest of the moves we saw. Like I said, you brought in a couple offensive linemen, nothing great. Burns was it's probably an overpay if you just look at it from a single, just staring at it as a deal. But as far as like what somebody else was willing to pay for him earlier, it's kind of like the prime days that we're having, at Amazon. Like, oh shit, like that used to cost this much. I can get a Burns for what? I don't care if that's already my only strength on this team. I maybe shouldn't add to it and go get somebody else, but I think whatever, it's fine. I'm not excited about it. Like you said, drafting wide receiver, it wasn't the strongest need they had, but it's still a damn need.
Oh, huge needs, no question. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's just that
it still might be big.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Like, there's just so little hope of this team contending, and yet so little hope of them being in a position to really change their fortunes in the coming years, that this feels like this is almost worse than being in purgatory. You're like in low purgatory for a while.
Yeah, you're in the sad part of purgatory.
You're in the sad part of purgatory. You're in like the
poor part of town in purgatory.
Yeah, you're like in the you're like in the like the late Rex Grossman era Bears type of space. Yeah. This is not this is not a team that really has much in terms of expectation and optimism. The primetime games are going to be a tough hang again for the third straight year. Like, this is a bummer. So let's rate them. Your quarterback OC situation is, I'm guessing, among the worst in the NFL. Is that correct?
It is. I have it tied with Carolina's.
Whoa, that's low. Tied with Carolina's.
1.5. I put it at the bottom because he missed OTAs, like saying he's going to be fine for camp. But like, what happens if we're saying we're going to take Daniel Jones, he might be worse, and we're not going to run him as much? It's not good. It's one of the worst. It's for sure one of the worst situations. And then we're getting a change in play caller. Like, I'm not excited about the flux. There's too much flux for me to have this anywhere but one of the worst situations in the league. I'm not happy about anything here.
What if week 7 to week 17, or to game 7 to game 17, if it's the Drew Lock show? Does that go up for you?
It's about the same, right?
Okay.
I think he's better than Drew Lock. I realized I was going to be probably lower than you on this, but at the same time, this is like here's the one that moves the first. Like,
I can't.
Pretty confident the rest of the numbers being steady-ish throughout the season.
Yeah.
This can go up if he's looking effective with his legs, if we're seeing a good scheme. But I haven't been happy about any of that.
Okay, so I'm assuming Dable's calling plays. I've seen enough in him in his career calling plays to suggest that he is at least going to have something interesting. And I'm assuming that Daniel Jones is going to be healthy. And if not healthy, then you're going to get a lot of healthy dose of Drew Lock, who's a perfectly capable backup. And for me, if you were to say trade this situation for Carolina, I would say no thanks. I would take the Giants if I was trying to win, ostensibly, which I don't think they should be doing, but that's fine. So I'm at 3. I had Carolina 2.5. I have the Giants at 3, and this is at the bottom of situations, but it's not the bottom for me. Where are you skill?
Skill is 3.
Okay.
You took a step back. You did take a step back at running back. You have Devin Singletary and like Eric Gray, and people are excited about Tyrone Tracy. I don't know a ton about this guy. People are pumped about Tyrone Tracy. Like, they're saying this guy might. Yeah.
The fifth round pick.
I want to make sure I'm not mixing him up with somebody. So, all right, he was a wide receiver for 4 years, but he played for a team that doesn't really have wide receivers in Iowa. They have punters and they have tight ends. Like, a wide receiver at Iowa, that's, it's like an oxymoron. So he transfers to play with Purdue. Somebody talks him into being a running back, and he rushes for 700 yards and 8 touchdowns on 113 carries. Turns out he's like a good running back. He's older because he's played 5 years of college, but it's also a running back that doesn't have what?
1 million miles, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have like 1,000 carries on him over 5 years of college either. So he's a little fresher in that sense.
He's got some Raheem Mostert about him.
Yeah, he's decent size. Like people are kind of pumped about this kid. So this could be something that elevates this team if Tyrone Tracy turns out to be good. But for now, like Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy, it's a pretty low on my list of running back rooms.
Yeah.
Waller retired. That sucks because you had a legit tight end when he was healthy. I don't really know what the thought process is going to be at tight end outside of the rookie. I'm trying to look who else. You got Bellinger. Yes,
yeah.
Bellinger.
He's back. He's recovered from his eye injury, supposedly.
Yeah, it's him and this rookie who's on the pup to start.
Remember when he got gouged in the eye? That was awful.
Yeah, that was a nasty injury.
That was awful.
And then you have this star in the making in Malik Neighbors, and he might be very good. Yeah, but it might be rough to start. We've seen that a lot. Even from like some of the rookies who've won Rookie of the Year from that position. Sometimes it's a slow start, and he doesn't have a ton around him. You got Hyatt needs to be the speedster. You want him to be Slayton, Wandell. You need Robinson to be good out of the slot. You need Hyatt to be a good deep threat. And you need Neighbors to actually click right away for this to be good. So it's rough. It's rough all around. It's a 3.
Okay, so I went 3.5, and the reason I did is because there's a lot of replacement level guys who I would give 3s, and then Malik Neighbors who has upside. So I'm going to bump it a bit.
A lot of upside.
And there's the ongoing joke for 2 years now was that the Giants put together an entire wide receiver room of wide receiver 3s, and
they've been doing that for a while.
Well, now they presumably have a 1. I thought there was enough pop with their 2s last year, particularly Hyatt, who does have hot nasty speed. Like that could emerge as a unit that's at least league average. And so I want to be closer to 5. So I'm 3.5. You're at 3. Where you said your offensive line is low, so this is going to be one of your worst offenses in football.
It's not good. I have the offense totaled up at 22%.
So what's your O-line? 2?
No, I have a 3. I have a 3 here, and like we've already talked about, one guy, Andrew Thomas, is carrying a lot of that because we didn't see shit out of Schmitz. Evan Neal hasn't panned out at all, and you got 2 guards coming in. The depth, like I said, you got Stimmy, but Stinney, I don't know about the rest of the depth. It's a rough hang right now, all across the offense for me.
Okay, so you've got them equal to Tennessee and New Orleans, and a hair better than Carolina. That all actually feels right. I'm at 3 as well. I have them better than New Orleans. I have them better than Carolina, and I have them better than Tennessee. And I think I'm hanging a lot on Andrew Thomas at left tackle being the guy from 2 years ago, not the guy who how many snaps did he even have last year? 10? Like he was barely on the field for them.
Yeah, they didn't have great luck with the injuries on offensive line over the past year or 2.
He started 10 games last year? How in the world? I thought he was out.
I think you're thinking it was Neal missed a bunch of time.
Huh. Thomas was out there for 10 games. And he was not very good last year. What the hell? I missed that entirely. I thought my rating was so low on him because he missed a bunch of time, but he was kind of available. Maybe I'm high.
The unit as a whole, and again, probably the offensive line coach wasn't helping. The quarterback switch, the fact that the rest of the offense wasn't great outside of probably Saquon. You didn't have a starting tight end for big chunks of it. It was probably a sum of all those parts that was hurting you.
He was out there for 76% of the snaps week 1, and then he missed 2 through 8, came back and was relatively available thereafter. But it didn't solve the problems, really. Okay. Well, I still think he's good enough to get them in a little ahead of the rest of those teams, so I'm going to leave him at 3. I'm at the 31st percentile. You're at 23rd. Your run stop grade for the Giants is what?
3.5.
You expecting any systematic changes with the defense? With the is it Shane Bowen or Joe Bowen? Shane Bowen?
Shane Bowen. I read a bit about him. The biggest thing that the beat writers, the preview guys, anyone who did any videos about him is, the big difference between Wink and Bowen would be blitz rate. And then also just because if you have a really good front four, a really good pass rushing unit, you should blitz less anyway, which may help the defense as a whole because, like we're going to talk about, it's not a good secondary. They lost their best piece. It's not great in the rest of the sense of just run. Like I said, run stop I don't have very high. Pass rush should be okay, but as a whole, it's probably not going to be a good defense. So if you don't have to blitz a lot, that's probably helpful. They had a weird split I read in the Football Outsiders. They were the sixth ranked defense at home, 29th on the road. I guess we did kind of see that from, we talked about that a lot with Cleveland, which was weird. They drafted a safety. You got the Minnesota product in the second round. They drafted another corner, Drew Phillips. He'll probably be slot nickel, fifth guy up kind of thing. So it's depth there. They didn't, like we said, we got Brian Burns. You added to that, but you lost Xavier McKinney. So the run stop is probably going to get worse.
That's tough, man. Would you know that in neutral game situations, so I'm excluding win probability outside of 20%, and excluding turnovers, the Giants were by far the worst run defense last year in APA per play allowed.
It's not good.
It's not.
Yeah, probably.
They were worse than Washington. They were worse than Seattle. They were bad. They were worse than the Chargers. Yeah, this was a bad unit last year. I'm kind of assuming they're going to be bad again. I'm looking at a 2.
Yeah, I'm hoping Okereke can still play well. He's good against the run. He's a 3-down guy. McFadden, I don't have a good ranking on. Jordan Phillips, I don't know where you have him, but I'm hoping he can eat something up. Just eat up some players so the other guys can tackle. I thought I was going to be too harsh on this team defensively. It sounds like I'm high.
Okay, what was your run stop number?
3.5.
Oh, okay. All right. Did I say 2? I'm 2.5. Sorry, 2.5 for run stop. Pass rush, I'm a 7.
I put 6.
6. There's not many pass rush kind of there's not many with not many pass rush units out there with 3 really, really high high ceiling
good
guys.
Names, but yeah, it's a new coordinator and I got to see it happen. And I know this should be independent maybe, but with a bad secondary, that's not going to help either. So Dexter Lawrence is great. Dexter Lawrence is very good. And Brian Burns is very good. And I'm hoping that these guys can help some of these young players. We can hope Thibodeau gets better because he's working with some good players like this. So maybe I could go up a little on this, but
what was your number?
6. Independent of that, I'm hoping Burns and Lawrence pan out well.
Okay. What's your coverage number?
Coverage is a 3.
Okay, I'm at a 2. This is a bad unit.
Look how kind I was to this team. I thought it was tough.
Well, you were tough on their offense. I was tough on their defense. It sounds like you have a 42nd percentile defense out of here. That's not going to be that bad. I'm at 38th percentile on the defense. Where are you getting to? How are you getting to 3? Who on here is replacement level besides Banks? And I don't even know if he really is.
No, it's it. Like Banks is young. So you're probably gonna see this 3rd round corner Andrew Phillips playing a bunch.
That's bad.
You're gonna see safety Tyler Nubbin, the draft pick in the 2nd round.
That's bad.
Playing a bunch. God, I'm probably high on this.
Yeah. I mean, if they get replacement level out of those 2 guys, then I'm gonna have to upgrade them to a 3 in season. But I need to see it to believe it. It's young players in the secondary like this who are going to be asked to do a lot, and I know that like. If you're telling me that structurally they're not going to be as aggressive blitzing, then you're not asking these guys to just ball out.
I think Nubbin's good. He just had a bad.
Maybe it'll look better, synthesized as a whole. But they're still like, I'm just excited to see CeeDee Lamb line up against Cordell Flott.
Yeah.
You know,
So I'm looking now. I have
AJ Brown going to be who's matching up with
rate.
AJ Brown here?
Deontay Banks. Like I have Deontay Banks did shadow people. They trust him enough once in a while to do that.
So Devontae Smith gets covered by who?
Yeah, I have a decent grade on him, and then a bunch of young guys.
Okay.
And there could be some rotating through. You got this Hawkins. You got Cordell Flott.
Yeah, Flott. Flott, I think, is a made-up player. I know he was drafted in 2022, but I had a very tough time coming up with a fair rating for Flott.
I think Nubbin can play well. He just had people are a little down on him because of the combine, but that was a first-team All-American. That was the consensus best safety in the draft.
Okay.
Yeah, losing McKinney sucks bad. That, not only for coverage but for run stop as well. So, all right, you know what? I'm taking
run Dory Jackson too.
I'm taking run stop to a 3 and coverage to a 2.5 because they don't have depth now either. You're right.
Okay, so run stop you're at 3.
So I'm down to a 38.
Coverage you're at 2.
I'm willing to adjust a little.
38. Okay.
I think I gave Deontay Banks too much credit. He's basically the only player I have playing well in the secondary.
Well, maybe you will be able to handle the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb because that'll be a solo assignment. No one else you got to worry about. Special teams.
Here's the other one I had. This is what brought my defense up a little on pass rush. It's not even like a very strong argument. Isaiah Simmons. I don't know what you have for him.
Is he even on the team anymore?
I thought so.
He's is he? I thought he was on the.
I have him as depth. Yep, he's depth. But when they go to like a coverage sub package, he's going to come in as like a coverage linebacker. Okay. He grades out well as that. So
they UFA'd him in March and then they re-signed him.
Yeah, he'll probably be on the team again as like a coverage linebacker. So I'm going to give him some credit. And Okereke too is decent. So you have decent coverage linebackers.
Okay, all right. All right, so we're actually on the same page. 38% off of the defense. Where is your special teams number?
3.5.
Okay, that's not very good.
Graham Gano wasn't very good last year, but he's been good in the past. Like he's bad. He was bad last year. He was 11 for 17. That's not great. He was 3 for 5 and 30 to 39 yarders, which is bad. Punter improved a little, but the punter is still middle of the pack, if that. There's probably going to be a kicking competition between. I got to find this guy, Jude McAdamany, a former Gaelic football player from Derry or Londonderry.
Are they going to be running rugby style kickoff returns?
I guess he was a kicker in college that got, hey, you're not the kicker anymore. You just do kickoffs now. You're that bad. So it's going to be a kicking competition between two shitty kickers. Returns. It might be your Tyrone Tracy as one of your return guys, or Isaiah McKenzie, a Bills guy that came over. Gunnar Olszewski is one. I'm not super sure who's going to be returning kick. It's probably going to be Isaiah McKenzie and maybe Tyrone Tracy. So
intangibles,
not tough. I ended up with a 3 here too, and I loved Dable as like a higher originally. I liked that the team was like rallied behind him in that year that they overperformed, but the strife, mom and dad fighting, these kids got to feel like they're in a home that's one night out away from a divorce.
What if that was all Wink's problem though?
I don't know. He didn't vibe well with Kafka either though.
Okay,
so I don't
interesting. So I gave him a 5 because I do like his in-game decision making. He does know when to go for 2. He does know when to, just generally knows how to go for it. And I think like the fact that he was able to get wins with Tommy DeVito last year, and the fact that he was able to get wins with Daniel Jones the year before, like that's got to mean something. So I went with 5. Even though I fully respect your opinion there. Okay, so final answer.
I guess thinking about that, if I had to take, we always do this. How many coaches would you take over this? And again, I'm only using that for 5% of the rating. So my final rating is a 27th percentile.
Oh boy, you are down there.
I am down on the Giants. Both of these teams are right now. That's 31st. I have the Patriots as the worst team.
You have the Carolina Panthers better than them, which is going to be interesting, as we're going to see in the schedule in a minute, because they're playing on a neutral field this year. They're playing internationally. We're sending Carolina and the Giants internationally, guys.
Sorry,
why we are declaring war on Germany, I don't know, but for some reason we are sending them two of our worst football teams, and we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong, because I have the Panthers slightly worse than the Giants. I'm at -5.5 for the Giants. I'm at -6 for the Panthers. You're at -6.5 for the Panthers. You're at -7 for the Giants. So you would
nothing like settling who's right and who's wrong with a sample of one.
Well, right now the market says I'm right, because the Giants are 1.5-point favorites in that neutral game in Munich, in the look-ahead market. So my 1 point, I'm only a half point. My half-point advantage is a little shy. Your 1 point advantage for Panthers is a little aggressive. Rough schedule. A lot of dogs early, a lot of tough places to figure out exactly when and where this team's going to get its legs under them. If they go into their bye after that Carolina game and they have 3 wins, I think you would all think this is a very successful outcome through 10 weeks for a team that is quite bad. But maybe they do something crazy and they beat the Giants at the Giants as 3-point dogs. Maybe they threaten the likes of the I'm trying to find any other team that I think they could beat that they're not already favored against. And I'm struggling. Seattle, doubt it, but maybe. If anything, I think that fact that they're favored right now against Minnesota might not ultimately close favorite Minnesota, right?
Pittsburgh could be in a weird spot.
It could be
good. It should be a good defense. Though. It still should be a tough defense to face, but I mean, Pittsburgh might not have their quarterback shit figured out.
Dude, they put these guys on Thanksgiving against Dallas. Why did they do that to us? Even when they were like quasi-competitive 2 years ago.
What if Dallas is good? Like what if Dak has a good year? The defense bounces back after Quinn is fine. Micah and the gang are running ref shot over people and the offense looks good. Like suddenly we have a 12-point favorite on Thanksgiving. Like that's not fun.
No. But that happened in recent time, man. Yeah. And actually the Giants backdoored in the grossest way ever, and I laid the points that day, and I still feel gross about it. Okay, there are a couple of absolute slam dunk. You're not getting this game on this calendar, on the schedule, and that's not good. So I count at least 6 likely losses, and then
Thanksgiving, good. Baltimore. Philly to close the season. You gotta hope Philly is resting if you want
Cincy,
players there.
Cleveland.
These are early in the season.
Yeah. There are 7 games where you are very likely to lose. That's not starting out 0-7 is not good. There are 0 games where you are likely to win. There are 3 coin flips you can win, and then 3 coin flips where you were hoping to win. So honestly, with all the investments you made in the offseason, with the healthy season from the quarterback who you're paying a bunch of money to, realistically 6-11 seems like a little bit of a glossy outcome. Am I crazy?
Yeah, I mean, even the first game, you're favored to start the season versus the Minnesota Vikings. We just talked about it. What is the strength of this team? Pass rush. They have a good front four.
Yeah,
they have a good pass rush. So right off the bat, you get a team with one of the better offensive lines.
At least maybe Addison's suspended, so you
worst
put
case
banks on Jefferson, and you don't have to worry
it's
about
a top 10 offensive line at worst, probably closer to top 5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And your one strength is neutralized, and probably facing a better coaching staff. Yeah, you really have to hope the quarterbacks stink for Minnesota. Otherwise, you might be heading into Pittsburgh trying to get off the schneid at 0-7.
Oh God, dude. I feel like they're going to be Washington week 2. If the Giants are the last winless team, that's going to blow up a lot of hope I have for some bigger prices in that market.
I don't have Washington that much better, so I mean that's feasible for sure.
Yeah, as always, a close one. Doesn't matter how bad both teams are. In this case, both teams are bad. Okay, No real like rest or travel of note other than the fact that they are going. They do have the travel advantage over Carolina when they go to Germany. Carolina must be doing some more kind of traveling in the that's the shadow of the travel is affecting them because I don't think it's a especially further flight to Munich. They have to play Baltimore off Baltimore's bye. They bring it home. That doesn't feel great. I think your mini bye against Seattle probably not going to matter because you have to travel all the way out to Seattle. Then that's a bad travel spot for you. That's about all I can say about this schedule. This looks like a 6-win schedule to me.
If that, I mean, that's winning 6 wins. 6 wins means all 6 coin flip games. I'm closer to 5 when I look at things, especially. I mean, look at my number; it's worse. So yeah, okay. I don't have this as a very good team. In fact, they're my second to worst team, and 7 points to a neutral. Sorry, New York. I'm willing to upgrade this quickly. I'm willing to upgrade it before the season starts if I see Daniel Jones.
You think they're going to play him in the preseason?
That's what I was just about to say. The only rub there is like, will we even see him play in preseason games? I'm not so sure I would do it. Although, like, if you're just trying to get your next quarterback, like, not only would I play him in the preseason, but I'm calling 17 quarterback draws. Like, yeah, go hit some linebackers, Daniel. See what happens.
Yeah, the sucky thing for them about their schedule is that they're playing a lot of really good offensive lines this year. So, like, your one strength is neutralized in almost every game, except that Carolina game. And New Orleans. Carolina and New Orleans, you should get those wins because your defensive line can specifically shut those teams down, presumably. Every other team on your entire schedule, outside of, I would listen to an argument that Cincinnati's not top half. I would listen to an argument that Pittsburgh's not top half. Every other team is a top half offensive line. Washington. Sorry. 2 games against Washington, New Orleans, and Carolina. You get 4 games against teams that have
bottom half some of the best offensive lines. Like,
you're playing some of the best.
You have Minnesota, you have Philly, you have Cleveland, you have
Indy, Atlanta. Dallas.
Just a litany of top 12 offensive lines.
Jesus,
like I said, the little analogy I made with Minnesota. It's like, oh, hey, we're here to neutralize your one strength, and you're a shitty team. Enjoy this.
Best of luck.
Yeah, they should be drafting first.
Do you have an appetite for all under wins then? If you think this is a 5-win team, you're going to come in low enough because like their win total is 6.5. Under is -136. You can get a 5.5. That's going to be like in the +160, +170 range, right?
I'm going to write that down.
Does anyone have alt win totals up yet, by the way?
I haven't really
explored.
Seen them. No, I've been. Yeah. This week's been pretty busy with golf. At this point, when you listen to this, we'll already have crowned.
Congratulations to Dan Brown.
Yeah, oh my! People are so mad. Like, oh, what a bad beat! Like, you're so fucking lucky to have Shane Lowry. But Lowry's good. I don't want to take anything away from him, but he putted his ass off to get to that spot. Like, he got a little lucky with this putter.
You think Morikawa really has a chance to come back? Huh?
No, I don't. I'm just sad that none of my. I have some.
Do you have any runners?
I have a decent Alex Noren. I got a good price from him. Nice. Some of my positional stuff's in pretty good shape. Rom to miss the cut would be a nice price, but we'll find out. And in fact, you already know. So,
I got one. Yeah, I got one question for you. Do you have any appetite for Malik Neighbors Rookie of the Year?
Not at the price. Like, I'm looking at the other wide receivers who are going to get a lot of volume just because. So on one hand, it's a team that's probably going to be throwing a lot because of just the situations. So he could get a ton of opportunity. On the other hand, to be like, I'm covering this. Even if he's a little good, I'm going to focus on him. Beat me with Wandale and Jalen Hyatt. Good luck with that. So I'd make him the focus of a defensive game plan pretty quickly if you start to see anything out of him.
His price is 14-1, and I honestly like all you really need is just Williams to not live up to expectation, and then he could be the best of the receivers.
Yeah,
right?
there's just the fact
In
that
terms
you're
of
gonna
volume.
give 3, 4, maybe 5 quarterbacks. I don't think 14 is that good of a price.
Okay.
That's what's tough this year with all the quarterbacks that could end up taking the field for meaningful portions of a season. I need big prices on I know we're not super keen on basically any of them.
I think they're all
But here's the thing, and I'm fucking horseshit at evaluating the quarterback jump from college to pro. Hated Herbert, loved Rosen, loved Darnold, hated Mayfield. Like I'm just 0 for a million.
Okay.
So I'm not willing.
How do you feel about this year's class then? I just want to know who to.
No, you're gonna see when I do my Washington rating because I'm just.
Okay.
I have here's my rookie rating. You're a rookie. I don't know. You're an unknown.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna chew on some Malik Neighbors 14-1 just and then think about it, because I do see a world where he is the volume getter of the
And
receivers.
he's in a decent media.
Yeah, that's the X factor.
Doesn't hurt.
That's the X factor. Okay, let's put a bow on the G-men and move on to.
Did that come out weird? Did that sound like off key? Was there
That sounded great.
quarter tone?
Sounded great. It was a little loud. Maybe
No,
it's
I'm
like.
I'm messing with the volume.
Oh, you are.
Trying to find the perfect volume. All right, we'll see you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with the Commandos.